John. She believed she was being discreet, but little did she realize I was privy to every detail through a colleague of hers who was appalled by the situation. While she schemed, I quietly strategized. Fortunately, I had ample time to quell my anger and ready myself for the impending confrontation. The stage was set, and tonight, following dinner, it would all unfold. Janet. So, tonight's the night? Deborah inquired. Yes, I'm finally going through with it. I'll wait until after dinner, bring him a beer, and then break the news, I affirmed. Just remember to stand your ground. He won't take it well, but you have to be firm, Deborah reminded me. I know, just as we discussed, he doesn't have a choice. This is what's best for me, and if he truly cares, he'll understand, I reassured her. Exactly. Brace yourself for the yelling and resistance. He'll put up a fight, but eventually, he'll come around. Stay composed but assertive. Let him vent, and he'll realize you mean business, Deborah advised. Right. And as far as he knows, it's only temporary. Once he adjusts, he'll see the benefits. Then, everything will fall into place. Are you sure about this? John can be stubborn, I expressed my concern. Janet, John adores you. Yes, he'll be furious, but deep down, he'll do anything to keep you happy. Even if it means accepting this, Deborah assured me. Okay, I'll trust your judgment, I conceded. Believe me, it took me 2 failed marriages to figure this out, but with my current husband, he's completely compliant. Give it time and John will fall in line too. You'll have the security of your marriage and the freedom to explore, Deborah revealed confidently. After wrapping up the day, I returned home to prepare John's favorite dinner. When he arrived, his customary, I love you, and kiss on the cheek greeted me. Despite my attempts to appear composed, nerves still lingered. This marked a significant shift in our marriage. Yet, I held on to the belief that it would all be worth it. Deborah had been sharing her experiences with a female-led marriage FLM for some time now. Witnessing how content her husband appeared within their dynamic convinced me that John could find happiness in it too. Dinner conversation flowed smoothly as we exchanged stories about our day and discussed current events. It seemed like any other evening meal for us. Following dinner, I insisted John relax with a beer while I took care of cleanup. He hesitated, eager to assist, but I assured him I had it under control. With leftovers stored in dishes in the dishwasher, the moment arrived. Pouring myself a glass of wine, I mentally steeled myself for the impending conversation and entered the living room prepared to confront the situation head-on. John, darling, we need to have a conversation, I began, steeling myself for what was to come. Of course, sweetheart. What's on your mind? He responded, his tone gentle. Okay, John. I know this might be hard to hear, but it's something I feel I must do. Please understand, it's only temporary, I explained, hoping he would grasp the gravity of the situation. Whatever it is, if it's important to you, I'm on board. Your happiness means everything to me, he replied, surprisingly calm. Thank you for being so understanding. So we've been talking about starting a family, and I'm almost ready for that. But before we do, there are a few things I need to address, I continued cautiously. That's fantastic news, baby. What do you need to take care of? He inquired eagerly. Here it was, the moment of truth. I took a deep breath, bracing myself for his reaction. Well, John, I need to explore some things before we settle down completely. It's just a temporary phase, and then I'll be fully committed to being the best wife and mother I can be, I confessed, hoping he wouldn't explode. That sounds reasonable, my love. But what exactly do you mean by exploring? He asked, surprising me with his composure. I couldn't believe how well he was taking it. This wasn't the explosive reaction I had anticipated. I planned to date other men for a while, but please understand, it's purely physical. You're the one I love. After a few months, I'll come back to you, and we can focus on building our family, I explained, relieved that he wasn't erupting into anger. Well, Janet, it seems you've already made your decision without needing my permission. While I want to make it clear that I'm not in favor of this, I understand you're your own person. I won't stand in your way if this is what you feel you must do," John calmly expressed, surprising me with his composed response. Deborah's insights were proving accurate. Perhaps John was more accepting than I anticipated. "So, Janet, how do you envision this working? Will one of us be moving out, or do you expect me to leave? Are you planning to bring your dates here, or will you be going to their places or hotels?" John continued, his tone remaining conversational. "Well, I assumed we both still live here. After all, we're still married, and as I mentioned earlier, our intimate life won't change. I might visit their places occasionally, but sometimes I'll bring them here too. On those nights, you'd stay in the spare bedroom. I don't see the need for a hotel when we have space here," I explained, trying to navigate the logistics calmly. "Okay, I want to reiterate that I'm not on board with this. However, I have to insist that I won't be intimate with you while this is going on. It's a matter of my own health. Since I won't know who these men are or what their backgrounds entail, I won't risk exposing myself to any potential STDs they might carry. Moreover, once you're done with this phase and decide to come back to me, we'll need to wait until you've been tested and cleared of any risks. You go and enjoy yourself, and don't worry about me," John stated firmly, expressing his boundaries. "Well, John, I can't say I'm not disappointed. I love you, and our intimacy means a lot to me. But I understand your concerns. I'll have to live with that," I responded, acknowledging his stance while feeling a pang of sadness. "All right, honey. So when do you plan on starting these flings?" John inquired, shifting back to practicalities. "Deborah and I arranged to meet a couple of guys from work at a club tomorrow night. I'm not sure what will happen, but I might bring one of them back here for the night. Since we won't be intimate anyway, maybe you should move into the spare room for the next couple of months," I suggested, trying to figure out the logistics. "Okay, Janet, don't worry about it. I'll make sure I'm settled in the spare room by the time you get back tomorrow night," John replied, returning to his newspaper without further ado. I was astounded by how maturely John handled the situation. Despite his reservations and refusal to engage in intimacy, he remained remarkably accepting. Deborah's prediction seemed spot on. In just a couple of months, John would likely be fully on board with my plan. And as for the no-sex rule, I knew it was only temporary. Given a week or two, he'd be back in our bed, none the wiser about my secret key to his compliance. The next day, I reached out to Deborah with excitement. "Hey, Deborah, it's Janet." "Hey there. So spill the beans. How did it go with John last night?" Deborah inquired eagerly. "Oh, you wouldn't believe it. John surprised me with his maturity. I was prepared for fireworks, but he remained calm and accepting throughout the whole conversation," I gushed. "That's fantastic. I told you he'd come around. Do you think you'll be able to persuade him to watch tonight?" Deborah asked optimistically. "I doubt it. Actually, I'm not even going to suggest it yet. He made it clear he wouldn't sleep with me while I'm involved with someone else," I explained, recognizing John's boundary. "I bet it won't last long. Give him a week or two of using his hand while knowing there's a beautiful woman next to him, and he'll come crawling back. He might even be desperate enough for sloppy seconds right after your lover," Deborah suggested mischievously. "That does sound enticing. Since he refused to touch me, I went ahead and had him move into the spare room. He's packing up right now. He promised he'd be completely out of the mistress' bedroom by the time I get home tonight," I shared, amused by the situation. "I love that you renamed it the mistress' bedroom. I might have to do the same," Deborah chuckled. "Oh, absolutely. Well, I better start getting ready. See you at the club," I said, preparing to end the call. "All right, bye for now," Deborah replied, and we hung up, both eager for the evening's adventures. Later that evening, John had made considerable progress in boxing up my belongings from the bedroom. I questioned the necessity of boxing everything when he could have easily carried armfuls of items down the hall. However, he explained that it would be more efficient, allowing him to sort through belongings and discard unnecessary items directly into the boxes. While I understood the logic, I was preoccupied with getting ready and didn't pay much attention. He complimented me on how attractive I looked in my thong, garter belt, stockings, and 5-inch heels. There was no comment from him when I slipped into the little red cocktail dress I had bought for our 5th anniversary last year. It had only been worn once before, but it still made me feel stunning. "All right, John, I'm heading out. I'll probably be back around 1 in the morning, so there's no need for you to wait up. Besides, I might not be alone," I informed him as I grabbed my clutch, ready to leave. "Don't worry, sweetheart. I'll have everything moved out by then," he assured me, closing the last box. As I left the house, a nagging feeling tugged at my mind, though I couldn't quite identify its source. I pushed it aside, choosing to focus on the excitement of the night ahead. I joined Deborah, Kurt, and Louis at the club. Kurt and Louis, both account managers at work, were undeniably handsome, and according to Deborah and a few other colleagues, generously endowed. So, John really moved all the way into the spare bedroom. Deborah inquired as our first round of drinks arrived. "Yeah, he finished boxing everything up just before I left. He assured me he'd be completely moved out by the time I returned," I confirmed. "Is that what he said?" Louis chimed in with a chuckle. "Yeah, that's his exact quote. I'll be moved out by then," I replied, and we all shared a laugh. I was hoping we could make the little cuck move over and do it on the bed right beside him, Kurt joked, eliciting more laughter. "Maybe once I've worked on him for a week or two," I giggled. "But first, why haven't either of you studs asked me to dance yet?" We spent the next few hours dancing and drinking. I danced with both guys multiple times, enjoying their company and the feeling of their hands on my waist. During the slower songs, we cuddled close, and her hands often found their way to my backside. Eventually, Deborah and I slipped away to the powder room to plan the end of the night. After a few rounds of rock, paper, scissors, I ended up taking Louis home, while Deborah left with Kurt. The house was shrouded in darkness as I guided Louis through the front door. John must have retired to bed already. That was fine. We didn't need an audience just yet. Leading Louis down the hallway and into my room, I noted with satisfaction that John's belongings had been cleared out. Perhaps I should reward him with a little something tomorrow, like a hand job. It was certainly worth considering, but for now my focus lay elsewhere. We wasted no time shedding our clothes, though Louis insisted I leave on the garter belt and stockings. My thong had vanished hours ago, a playful memento claimed by either Kurt or Louis. Not that it mattered. With John's financial support, replacing it was hardly a concern. Tonight promised to be scorching hot. After Louis left to tend to his family, I slipped into my robe and headed for the kitchen to brew some coffee. I couldn't help but feel a twinge of disappointment that John hadn't already taken care of it. It was past 9 o'clock after all. Typically, he'd have been up for an hour by now. I made a mental note to address this with him later. It seemed reasonable to expect him to have coffee and breakfast ready for me after a late night. So much for the hand job I had considered as a thank you for moving to the spare bedroom while I was out. I settled for a bagel for breakfast before heading to the shower to freshen up. The hot water worked wonders, soothing my tired muscles. With no pressing obligations for the day, I opted for a comfy ensemble, an old pair of shorts, and a t-shirt. Since I'd only be spending time around John, I grabbed a functional bra and a pair of regular panties. Just as I finished tying my hair into a ponytail, my phone began to ring. "Hey, Deborah," I greeted as I noticed her name on the caller ID. "Hi there. So, spill the beans. How was Louis last night?" she inquired eagerly. "He was amazing. Everything I hoped for. Although there's a slight hiccup. He turned down my offer," I confessed. "Regarding John, how did he react this morning?" Deborah asked, shifting the conversation. "I'm not sure. I'm actually irritated because he seems to be sleeping in. I was counting on him to have breakfast ready with coffee made by now," I grumbled. "Make sure you express your disappointment and set your expectations clear. Keep asserting yourself, but also remember to reward him for his efforts. That'll give him motivation to step up," Deborah advised wisely. "I'm starting to get annoyed that he's still not up. Hold on a sec while I give him a wake-up call," I said determinedly. I strode down the hall to the spare bedroom and pounded on the door, calling out John's name. No response. Trying again, I received silence once more. Finally, I turned the knob and flung the door open. "Oh, Dan!" I exclaimed in shock. "What's going on?" Deborah's voice echoed through the phone. "John's not here. His clothes are gone from the closet," I replied, panic rising. "Hold on," I continued as I sprinted through the house. "His truck's missing too, along with all his tools." The nagging feeling in the back of my mind began to solidify. "Oh no," I gasped. What's happening?" Deborah pressed anxiously. "John moved out. Now it all makes sense. I misunderstood what he meant. He didn't say he was moving his stuff to the spare room. He said he was moving it out of my room. Then he mentioned being moved out before I got back. I thought he meant out of my room, but he meant out of the entire house. I need to call him and find out where he went," I exclaimed in realization. No. That's not the way to handle this. Contacting him now shows weakness. You need to stay strong. Let him come to you," Deborah advised firmly. "Trust me, he's just throwing a tantrum. In a few days, he'll come crawling back. This is actually a good thing. Now you have the upper hand to punish him and make him beg to come back. It'll speed up the process. I wouldn't be surprised if you let Louis or Kurt knock you up and make John raise the kid." "Are you sure about this?" I asked, still feeling a bit uncertain. "Absolutely. Just look at what my husband does for me," Deborah replied confidently. "Well, I have to admit, you've been right about things so far," I conceded. "Of course I have. Oh, and Kurt wants to meet you in the storage room at work for an hour on Monday," Deborah added casually. "Can we really get away with that?" I questioned, feeling a hint of nervousness. "Of course. Half the girls are doing it. I handle all the scheduling. I'll email you the details. Just mark it as a meeting somewhere else. Don't worry, the boss never goes in there, and anyone who needs something from there knows to ask me first," Deborah assured me. We chatted a bit more before ending the call. Despite my apprehension about John moving out, I couldn't deny my love for him and my desire to spend my life with him. But Deborah had painted such an enticing picture of the FLM, with its freedom to explore other men while keeping John as a loyal, submissive husband. Perhaps in a few years I could negotiate with John to stop seeing other men if I felt ready to give them up. He wouldn't need to know that it would be on my terms. And maybe I could use pegging as a condition for allowing him to come back. I need to think about that one. But for now, I needed to recover from last night, gearing up for what would undoubtedly be a long, hard day at work tomorrow. Chuckling at the unintended innuendo, I prepared a simple dinner, enjoyed a glass of wine, and headed to bed. Friday morning. I hadn't heard from John all week, which left me feeling increasingly uneasy. Deborah, however, remained optimistic, assuring me that his silence wasn't entirely unexpected. According to her, he would likely reach out soon. Besides, she pointed out, the longer he stayed away, the more leverage I could gain for his eventual return. Throughout the week, I had been meeting with Kurt, Louis, and a few other attractive men in the storage room, as arranged. Today's agenda even included a scheduled double teaming with Kurt and Louis in the afternoon. It was mid-morning on Friday, and during our break, Kurt, Louis, Deborah, and I were gathered around the coffee maker, engaged in light conversation, when we noticed an elegantly dressed woman approaching us. Janet Thompson, Deborah Allen, Louise White, and Kurt Anderson, she inquired in a sweet southern drawl. Confirming our identities, we each received an envelope from her, and she snapped a quick picture with a small digital camera. "You all have been served," she announced before turning and heading toward our boss's office. "What's this about?" I called out to her retreating figure. "Honey, I'm just paid to deliver 'em, not read 'em," she replied over her shoulder before entering our boss's office without knocking. She emerged less than a minute later. "You all have a nice day now," she chirped as she exited the building. With a sense of foreboding, we all opened our envelopes simultaneously, revealing petitions for dissolution of marriage inside. Panic set in as I read the reason listed: adultery. Frozen in shock, I glanced up to see Louis and Kurt's expressions mirror my own. "Oh, Dan," they whispered simultaneously as their cell phones began to ring. The situation escalated rapidly as Louis and Kurt received calls from their wives, who had been provided with evidence of their infidelities. Moments later, their possessions were being unceremoniously thrown out of the front door, leaving them in need of alternative accommodation. The impending service of divorce papers loomed over them. "What the hell?" erupted from the interior of our boss's office, prompting him to storm out and confront us. With fury evident in his voice, he shouted our names for all to hear. "Thompson, Allen, White, Anderson. Get your asses in here, now." A sinking feeling settled in the pit of my stomach as we obediently filed past him into his office, the door slamming shut behind us. Bad didn't even begin to cover it. "Would any of you idiots care to explain this to me?" our boss demanded, brandishing the manila envelope in front of us. None of us dared to speak up. "Fine, I'll enlighten you morons. It seems the company is being sued for failing to uphold the moral code outlined in our employee handbook. Any guesses as to why?" Once again, silence met his question. "Allow me to clarify. We're being sued because Mrs. Thompson can't keep her legs closed, Mr. Anderson and Mr. White can't seem to control their urges, and Mrs. Allen has transformed our warehouse into a brothel. Now, can any of you assure me that these claims are baseless? Can any of you confirm that, at the very least, these incidents didn't occur on company time or property? Anyone? No? Unbelievable. What the hell were you idiots thinking? And the cherry on top? I can't even fire you until this mess is sorted out thanks to that damn court order. Now get out of my office until I figure out what to do with you." With heads lowered, we shuffled out of his office and returned to our own workspaces. It was hard to focus after that bombshell. At least I still had a job. I decided to review the divorce petition to gauge the extent of the damage. It was worse than I imagined. He had evidence in the form of pictures, videos, audio recordings, and even notarized letters. An hour later, there was a company-wide email sent from the boss. To all employees, management has become aware of multiple instances where employees have planned, scheduled, and engaged in activities that directly violate the moral code of conduct outlined in the employee handbook. What's more concerning is that these actions took place during working hours and on company premises. Given the possibility that this issue may be more widespread than initially documented, we are compelled to take immediate and drastic action. Unfortunately, identifying the individuals involved has proven challenging. Therefore, the following measures will be implemented. 1. All employees are required to thoroughly review the moral code outlined in the employee manual. Over the weekend, our IT department will develop an online class to ensure understanding and compliance. Each employee must successfully complete this course by next Friday. 2. Security will conduct random checks of all secluded areas throughout the day, multiple times. This will continue until permanent security cameras are installed to monitor these locations. 3. Effective immediately, access to the storeroom will be restricted. The key will be held by the head of security, and any necessary supplies must be obtained with a security escort. 4. It will closely monitor computer usage to prevent personal activities on company assets. Prohibited activities include scheduling non-work-related meetings, using personal email accounts, accessing non-work-related websites, and engaging in non-work-related text messaging. 5. Socializing with coworkers must be confined to the break room during scheduled breaks and lunch times. Security officers will patrol the building to enforce this policy. Per company policy, the names of those responsible for these actions will not be disclosed. We trust that this information will not be necessary. Thank you for your attention to these matters. Management. 2 minutes later, my inbox was flooded with hate mail from disgruntled colleagues. After work, I joined the other 3 at the bar across the street. We managed to snag a small table in the corner amidst several other coworkers enjoying Friday happy hour. Their disdainful glares towards us were far from welcoming. Well, at least we still have jobs, for the time being anyway. It was almost considerate of him, don't you think? But why you suppose John included that provision in the court order? I pondered aloud. Louis let out a scoff. Oh, come on. It's pretty obvious. He wasn't trying to spare your feelings. He did it to inflict more pain. What do you mean? I inquired, a mixture of curiosity and apprehension in my voice. Alimony. It might not even matter because he's citing adultery, but this is just insurance against that, Lewis explained. If you're employed and earning, a judge won't likely order alimony, but if you were to lose your job and struggle to find another, a sympathetic judge might grant financial support until you're back on your feet, so you hold on to your job until the divorce is finalized. Once that's done and a settlement with our company is reached, we could all find ourselves out of work, sans alimony. This wasn't about helping you, it was about covering his own back. I'll just resign on Monday then, I declared, attempting to take control of the situation. Good grief, you're truly a natural blonde, aren't you? Kurt remarked. What do you mean? I asked, feeling a bit defensive. Resigning is essentially waving a red flag to the judge, Lewis explained grimly. If you quit your job after being served divorce papers, it'll look like you're trying to manipulate the situation to get alimony. Trust me, the judge won't buy any other explanation. You'll be seen as someone trying to game the system. Your best bet is to hang on to that job for dear life and stash away every penny you can. It's going to be even worse for Lewis and me, Kurt chimed in. Our wives will likely get awarded alimony and child support, given our kids in the picture. Imagine the mess when we suddenly lose our jobs and can't find anything close to the same income level. Alimony and child support payments are set based on our current incomes at the time of divorce. Dan, I muttered, feeling the weight of the situation sinking in. This whole female-led marriage thing wasn't sounding so great anymore. I realized I needed to have a serious talk with John and sort things out. As much as I wanted to support my friends, losing my husband wasn't an option. What was I even thinking? Forget my friends. If throwing them under the bus could save my marriage, then let the tossing begin. I swiftly pulled out my phone, ready to make the call. We're sorry, but the number you have dialed is not accepting calls from this number. Dan. Deborah, give me your phone. Why? Because John blocked my number. I need to talk to him and get this shitstorm fixed. She handed me her phone as my 3 companions looked at me dubiously. We're sorry, but the number you have dialed is not accepting calls from this number. Dan, he blocked yours too. Try Kurt or Lewis. Not a real good idea. I'm trying to fix things here. What do you think he will do if he finds out that the first call I make to him is with the phone of one of my lovers? Yes, I know. You already think that I'm stupid. At this point, I can't even refute that. Given what happened at the office today, I can only say that I had a massive wake-up call. I was in full-blown panic mode. How do you track down a husband who's deliberately avoiding you on a Friday evening? Staking out his workplace was futile since it's closed, and he doesn't work weekends. With our cell phones blocked and likely our home and work phones too, direct communication was out of the question. Face-to-face seemed like the only option. I needed to find him and confront him head-on. Forget about my pride, forget about these other women's marriages. Right now, all I wanted was to reconcile with my husband. As I scrolled through my contacts, I hoped that one of his friends might have a clue. Unfortunately, none of our mutual friends seemed to know anything. Well, that's not entirely accurate. The ones who still talked to me had no idea, but the ones who now despised me had all the information. However, they weren't about to help me out. Instead, they laughed at my requests for assistance, refusing to even pass on a message. It was humiliating. As I hung up the phone after my unsuccessful attempt to reach John, I sank deeper into my seat, nursing my 4th drink. Just then, Lewis piped up with what he probably thought was a stroke of genius. Well, he began, since our lives have already gone to waste anyway, why don't we go to Janet's and spend the whole night as a foursome? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Did he really think that was a good idea? Maybe to him, but after the reality check I just received, I couldn't entertain the thought. Despite feeling like everything was falling apart, I still clung to the tiny sliver of hope that John and I could salvage our relationship. That hope would vanish in an instant if I gave in to Lewis's suggestion. Politely declining, I suggested that Deborah take them home with her. I had a husband to try to win back, and I wasn't about to jeopardize that chance. Over the weekend, I exhausted every avenue to locate John. From scouring motel parking lots for his truck to driving by his friends' homes at various times, I left no stone unturned. I even attempted to tail his best friend, hoping he'd lead me to John. But despite my efforts, I came up empty-handed. Monday morning, I stationed myself across the street from his workplace, eagerly awaiting his arrival. However, as progressed, John never showed up. Disheartened, I lingered for another hour, but there was still no sign of him. By then, I was already late for my own job, but I was beyond caring. The impending settlement meant my employment status was precarious anyway. Bracing myself, I entered the office and approached the receptionist, hoping for some information on John's whereabouts. Unfortunately, I learned he was on leave for the next 2 weeks. Ignoring the boss's glare, I trudged into the office, already 2 hours late. At this point, I had exhausted all conventional means of reaching John. Phones were either blocked or risky to use. His friends were uncooperative, and I couldn't even get a message to him at his workplace. Showing up unannounced at his doorstep wasn't feasible, and I had no address for postal correspondence. As I settled into my desk, a glimmer of hope emerged. Email. John was diligent about checking his emails. With nothing to lose, I decided to give it a shot, praying that he hadn't blocked my emails. It was worth a try. John, I won't attempt to fabricate excuses, as it would only waste our time. I must admit, I seem to have caught a sudden case of foolishness. It's not fair to blame Deborah. I made my own misguided decision. Yet the allure of her talk about a female-led marriage seemed irresistible at the time. Deep down, I knew better than to think you'd entertain such an idea. It took a metaphorical blow to the head for me to snap out of it. I'm awake now, profoundly embarrassed and genuinely sorry for my actions. I understand if you can't forgive me just yet. John, despite my recent behavior, my love for you remains unwavering. Please don't blame yourself. This was entirely my doing, born out of sheer idiocy and selfishness. John, my love, though I know I don't deserve it, I beg for your forgiveness. I'm pleading for another chance, willing to do whatever it takes to earn your trust back. I see now how foolish I was to pursue a FLM, and I am eager to embrace an MLF with you. Yes, John, I'm offering myself wholly to you, ready to fulfill your every command. I understand the gravity of the word anything. Please, John, I'm laying everything on the line for you. Since it was a condition for my return to you, I've already undergone STD testing, and the results should be available in a couple of days. Just let me know where to send them, and I'll make sure you receive them promptly. John, I recognize you as the finest man I've ever known. I trust that you would never intentionally harm me, even though I may have warranted it. I acknowledge all of this. I'm not asking you to forget or to trust me again. All I seek is the opportunity to be yours in whatever capacity you desire. I desire nothing more than to reunite with you, even if it means accepting the end of our marriage. I hope it doesn't come to that, but I understand that decision isn't mine to make. I take full responsibility for my actions, and I'm prepared for any consequences you deem fitting. Regarding Deborah, Kurt, Lewis, and the lawsuit against my company, Deborah manipulated me into participating in this scheme, and Lewis and Kurt exploited the situation. As you're aware, I'll be terminated once the lawsuit concludes. We're all culpable. Feel free to handle them as you see fit. I'm even willing to assist if you desire. From now on, I willingly submit myself to you. Your devoted servant, Janet. Epilogue. Fortunately, John hadn't taken the step of blocking my email yet. Even more astonishing was that he actually read it. Of course, he didn't fully trust my words. After all, I had already violated the most significant vow I had ever made, the one about forsaking all others. Given my breach of that promise, it was understandable for him to doubt my commitment to any other pledges. All I could do was demonstrate my sincerity to him through consistent actions over time. It has been 2 years since I sent that email. Lewis and Kurt found themselves deeply embroiled in the turmoil of their divorces. Following the settlement of the lawsuit against the company, all 4 of us were promptly dismissed from our jobs. Lewis and Kurt eventually secured new employment, albeit with significantly lower wages. They were forced to relocate to a cramped 2-bedroom apartment in one of the city's most undesirable neighborhoods. Struggling to make ends meet, they found their social lives dwindling to near non-existence. Their ex-wives took advantage of the situation to alienate their children from them. I've heard that both women have since found themselves in happier relationships. Regarding myself, John agreed to my proposition of becoming his submissive. Yes, John wanted to put my commitment to the test to see if I would uphold my promise. If I wanted to reconcile with him, I had no alternative. It was a challenging 6 months, but eventually, he eased up a bit. Now, he only brings other women home once every couple of months. After losing my job, I ceased working altogether. John received a promotion and now earns enough for us to live comfortably without my income. I predominantly stay at home, caring for our 2-year-old twins and managing the household. Most of the time, I'm unclothed, although John recently mentioned that I'll need to start wearing clothes at home soon. As the kids are getting older, it might become awkward otherwise. However, for the time being, I only dress when leaving the house or when we have guests over. I still answer the door nude for deliveries. As for Deborah, well, she's still married. Sure, she was also terminated from her job, but nobody really anticipated any significant repercussions for her. She had her husband completely under her control. She'll simply find another job, and life will continue as usual for her. Oh well, life isn't always equitable. Yeah, right. It turns out Marcus wasn't the submissive pushover everyone perceived him to be. Once he gathered all the evidence, he became furious. I thought I had a difficult 6 months, but compared to hers, mine was a walk in the park. Then, when he felt she'd been sufficiently punished, he served her with divorce papers. While he was subjecting Deborah to torment, he was covertly liquidating all their assets and safeguarding them. He granted her the house, after refinancing and claiming all the equity, then vanished. She lost the house, and all the money disappeared. Although she managed to secure another job, it paid only half of what she had been earning before. Additionally, she developed a tarnished reputation. She still goes on dates, but the men are only interested in one thing: getting into her pants. She's currently not dating, though, as she still has another month of antibiotics to complete. You may be wondering why I tolerate this situation, or perhaps you find it amusing that I'm facing the consequences I deserve. If you're upset because John didn't abandon me, I thank God every day for his mercy, though I know I deserved otherwise. I endure because I simply can't fathom life without the love of my life by my side. Yes, John inflicts punishment and degradation upon me, but he still loves me. I retain the freedom to leave whenever I choose, and John has assured me of fair treatment in the event of a divorce. However, I declined his offer. He's an exceptional father, partner, and spouse, and I desire nothing more. I became so fixated on the notion of a female-led marriage that I lost sight of what truly matters. Instead of finding fulfillment in an equal partnership, I've embraced a submissive role to my husband. It wasn't the path I envisioned, but I find contentment in it. Thank you for watching my video to the end. Don't forget to give me a like if you like this story and subscribe to my channel. Have a great day and see you soon.